Today I'm going to attempt something new. I'm going to read two articles one after the other, and we will dive deeper into the realities that govern our gender war as we speak. The articles are found in the description below, and I'm going to read snippets of the articles and then address them both independently and together at the same time, along with my thoughts on the very issues discussed there. The first article is not really an article, but rather a blog post written by someone. Don't know who, the person is anonymous. It could of course be fiction, but I'll take it more or less to face value and we will continue from there. The first article comes from Tumblr, from I Believe You It's Not Your Fault. Let's read parts of that article. In the first grade, a boy named John, a notorious troublemaker, systematically chased every girl in our class during recess, trying to kiss her on the lips. Most gave in eventually. It was easier to give in than keep running. When it was my turn, I turned and faced him, grabbed his glasses off his weasel face and stomped on them on the hard black top. He ran to the principal's office and cried. In 5th grade, I was asked to be a boy's girlfriend over email. It was the first email I ever received. He actually told me he wanted to send me an email, so I went home and made an AOL account. We went to a carnival and he won me a Garfield stuffed animal, and then he gave me a 3 Doors Down CD. A few days later he broke up with me and asked for Garfield and the CD back. I said no. In 6th grade, a girl in my year gave head to an 8th grader in the back of the school bus while playing Truth or Dare. Let's skip forward a bit from here. Sophomore year of high school, one of my best friends, Hillary, had a party in her basement while her mom was away. We invited some of the guys in our grade, and someone's older brother brought us a handle of vodka. One of the boys who came sat next to me in Spanish class. His name was Thomas. I remember playing a simple game where we passed a bottle of vodka around in a circle and drank. I remember being happily tipsy and having fun, to suddenly being very drunk. Thomas and I started chanting numbers in Spanish, and he leaned towards me and kissed me. We kissed in the middle of the party with all of our friends cheering. Then we went into Hillary's bedroom. Hillary's bedroom was in the basement on the ground floor with a large window next to her bed. When someone went outside to smoke a cigarette, they realized it was a front row seat to what was happening in the bedroom. It was dark outside and the light on was in the bedroom. They called everyone outside to watch. I don't remember getting undressed, but apparently we were both completely naked in Hillary's bed. A friend of mine told me later she tried to open the door and stop what was happening, but Thomas must have locked it. They said they pounded on the door. I don't remember hearing them pounding. I don't remember seeing everyone's faces outside the window. I remember Thomas holding my head down and shoving his penis into my mouth. I remember trying to resist, pulling back, but he held his hands firmly on my head, pushing my face up and down. That's all that I remember. The next day my friends and I went to dinner at one of our favorite local restaurants. I couldn't eat anything, and it wasn't because I was hungover. Every time I tried to put food in my mouth, it felt like I was choking. Every time a flash of the night before appeared in my mind, I felt like vomiting. My friends sat with me in silence. Then they told me a girl named Lindsay, who had briefly dated Thomas freshman year, had stood outside and watched the entire time, even after everyone else stopped watching. My friends said they didn't watch. On Monday, Thomas and I sat next to each other in Spanish. We didn't speak. We didn't make eye contact. I went to the girls' bathroom and threw up. I hear Lindsay and Thomas live together now, 10 years later. And again, we're skipping forward to the conclusion of this so-called article. I could go on. I could tell you a lot more about the whistles on the sidewalk, the kids who sat at the bottom of the stairs in high school to look up our skirts, my friend who was a prostitute in South Carolina, the men who've cornered me in parking lots and bars calling me a tease, the unwanted grabbing on the subway, the many times my father has called me fat, the time I traveled to the Philippines and discovered Western men pay preteen locals to spend the week in their hotel, the messages on OkCupid asking me to fart in my mouth, about how I wasn't sure if I had been raped because I was drunk and kissed Thomas back, how he raped my mouth and not my vagina, so that must not be rape, how easy it was for me to escape the dark street in Copenhagen, and how that made it not matter since it could have been worse. Men have no idea what it takes to be a woman, to grin and bear it and persevere. the constant state of war, navigating the relentless obstacle course of testosterone and misogyny, where they think we're property to be owned and plowed. But we're not. We're people just like them, equals in fact, or at least that's the core of what feminism is still trying to achieve. The job is not over. We've made great progress. There are female CEOs, though not very many. There are females writing for the New York Times and winning Pulitzer Prizes, though not very many. There are female politicians, though not very many, but these advances are only on paper. The job won't be over until equality permeates the air we breathe, the streets we walk, and the homes we live in. I think back to how easy it was for me in the first grade to feel fearless and strong in my conviction to stomp on John's glasses. I felt right in reacting how I did because John's behavior was wrong, but this was an elementary learning of the wide boundaries of his gender would go on to afford him. For me, it will never again be so easy. So you guys make sure you read the rest of the article, of course, so that you make sure I haven't skipped anything essential, and make sure you access the link below. Now, time for another article, this time coming from Daily Mail. I know not the best source, but let's give it a go and read a few snippets from the said article. Hospital consultant becomes the first man in the UK to be ordered to pay every penny of his 550,000 assets to his GP ex-wife in extraordinary divorce case. Essam Ali, 54, washed his hands of family after leaving wife Anas, 46. He moved to Bahrain and has not paid child maintenance since 2012. Family judge ordered money to go to I for benefit of their children. Court of Appeal judges have now upheld payout against anesthetist. A hospital consultant has become the first man to be ordered to pay all of his 550,000 assets to his ex-wife following an extraordinary divorce ruling. Anesthetist Dr. Essam Ali, 54, washed his hands of his family after leaving wife Anas, 46, in 2011 and moving to Bahrain, and has not paid a penny in maintenance or child support since 2012. Out of the reach of the British authorities and courts, it was feared the serial defaulter from Burton-on-Trent, Staffordshire, would never again pay to support their two children. Court of Appeal judges have now upheld the payout. The court heard the husband worked at Queen's Hospital in Burton while the wife was a GP in Derby. The couple married in 2002 and had a son and a daughter before separating in 2011. Dr. Ali moved to Bahrain the following year and has since started a relationship with another woman, undergone an Islamic marriage ceremony, and had another child. The couple had two children together, and they were in essence married for 9 years prior to separation. The man went to Bahrain and started a new family there. The court said since he wasn't paying, all of his assets need to be frozen and then taken away from him, and of course given to the wife. Upholding the award, Lord Justice McFarlane said the judge had in front of him a case where he was entitled to hold there was no realistic expectation of getting any further maintenance out of the husband. He was beyond the reach of enforcement of courts in this country. He hadn't been paying for the previous 2 years. The judge was required, in determining the outcome of the financial provision proceedings, to give first consideration to the welfare of the two children. On the case before the judge, the wife was to have the sole responsibility and financial burden for bringing these children up. The judge therefore concluded that she should have the lion's share, if not all, of the assets, as she needed them to house herself in appropriate accommodation and make provisions for these children. Thus it was that he awarded her a far more substantial lump sum than he would otherwise have been the case if equality was the only yardstick. After the case, Andrew Newbury, head of family law at Slater and Gordon, said, "One of the approaches the family court must take is to achieve fairness to both parties, and in many cases that involves dividing the assets equally. In the present case, the only way to achieve fairness is to award the wife all of the assets to ensure her needs and the children's are met. By contrast, the husband will have the unfettered use of his income and earnings potential." And top divorce lawyer Alicia Vardak said, "This was a very straightforward decision to make sure this wife and children got something out of a non-paying husband. It secured the funds for the weaker party. A lump sum in the hand is worth years of uncertain maintenance in the bush." Now that we have read both articles, I want to expand on the ideas that these articles have given to myself. The first article, of course, talks about the horrible experiences of a female that went through while she was growing up in a portrayed patriarchal society. This society over-sexualizes women, and women are subjected to a multitude of harassment and rape by the sound of things. Now, whether the rape happened or not, I'm not sure, but if it did, the person responsible should have been punished. But the event with the clothes off and everyone watching and having fun with it does make me question the memory of events of that certain individual. But granted, if it did happen, it needs to be punished, and of course so should the conclusion of this woman in the article. Quote, "Men have no idea what it takes to be a woman, to grin and bear it and persevere. The constant state of war, navigating the relentless obstacle course of testosterone and misogyny, where they think we're property to be owned and plowed. But we're not. We're people just like them, equals in fact, or at least that's the core of what feminism is trying to achieve. Men, according to this woman, do not have an idea of what it feels like to grin and bear it and persevere. We as men have never worked hard enough for anything in our lives. Countless fathers do not persevere jobs that they hate and wives they hate even more in order to stay with their children. They do not persevere abuse, harassment, or physical attacks. Men are not more likely to get attacked by other men than women are. You see, this person did what many in MGTOW do as well, when we generalize one person's experiences of one individual with the entire gender. There are shit people everywhere. I was personally harassed and proposed to by a woman much older than me throughout my early teens to late teens until I eventually had to give in and sleep with her. I have been touched inappropriately by many females, and if you want to see sexual harassment, walk in a club of drunken empowered women as a man. You get groped and proposed by females. Whether the situation is similar or not, I'm pretty sure that women do get a lot more sexual harassment than men do. But to deny that men get sexually harassed or have it difficult is moronic. This feminist says we have made great progress as we have all these high achievers in life. I think those high achievers are some of those people who persevered much like men do in the majority of situations. If we look at the numbers, of course, we seem to do it more often than females do. This article does not quote stats, it does not quote any evidence, it's just a personal story, if indeed it is true, of someone seeking female empowerment. That's what the aim of this Tumblr article is. By the way, this woman has not said that she has done anything in order to change her situation. She just claimed in the end, quote, "I think back to how easy it was for me in the first grade to feel fearless and strong in my conviction to stomp John's glasses. I felt right in reacting how I did because John's behavior was wrong, but his was an elementary learning of the wide boundaries his gender would go on to afford him. For me, it would have never been so easy." I don't believe in the slightest for the female CEOs or the male CEOs for that matter, for doctors, male and female, for lawyers, Nobel Prize winners, it was ever easy in achieving what they did. And the problem here is that for this woman it will never be so easy because she assumes that it is easier being a man. And that's where the second article plays in. For the anaesthetist in that article, the situation is that all of his assets in the UK have been taken away from him and have been given to his ex-wife because he didn't seem like he was ever going to pay for the child support. Of course, despite the fact that this man should have paid for the child support, the amount of child support should have not exceeded what the child needs. In the lifetime of a child until the age of 21, the total cost of raising a child is $230,000. This is with working inflation into it, and there has been a rise of about 63% in the UK. The man had 2 children, that's a total of 460,000, and the judge gave that woman 550,000. What this tells us is that it is the man's sole responsibility to pay for everything, child and woman. That 230,000 should be split in half, and the couple should pay equally, especially when the mother is a working professional, as this woman is. However, despite what feminists will have you to believe, the judge wanted to make things easy for this woman, and this is how society at large works. The woman is also a GP earning at least an annual salary of close to at least 100,000. But this woman was seen again to be the weakest of the two, even though the doctor, even though he works in the UK and being a hospital doctor, would have most likely be earning less than 100,000. That's the reality of the UK system, and it doesn't make sense and you should not really think about it. But this is how things are. GPs get paid more than hospital doctors. The judge in all of his justice glory, has decided to throw all of the responsibility, even though he's not involved with his family at present, on the man. It is his responsibility and his job to take care of mother and children. You see, I understand about having half the responsibility for the children, but logically I do not see how the judge can justify the man having to have responsibility for the wife as well. This is the first ruling, and if this is a sign for things to come, there should be signs outside churches and registration offices saying that if you're a man and you're getting married, you're effectively quite suicidal. Despite what feminist propaganda might tell you, and for the most part I do believe that that Tumblr article is just that, women have it a lot easier in the world. Men have it harder. The only way that a man can navigate this disgusting reality that exists in the Western world is to avoid marriage and avoid engaging with women who always see men as the tyrannical and patriarchal figureheads in every single man that they see around. If the story did happen and the article on Tumblr is indeed true, then I feel sorry for that woman. But if she wants women to achieve what they want to achieve, they need to fight from birth to the end, just like men do. If they want to be high achievers, you need to move on and stop acting like a victim. Reality for women is already easier than it is for men. I don't see how they can still complain and ask for things to be even more easier. I have not seen a single court ruling against a woman taking away all of her hard-earned assets to give them to the man. And I believe none of us will ever see it in our lifetimes, but I predict this trend with men losing everything will continue. Therefore, men and women need to realize and accept each other's differences, and if we want to keep shouting for equality, we need to accept that our mere small and minute experiences are not a dictate for everything that's happening in the world. I'm not patriarchal, and my entire gender, including me, is not a tyrannical force, while fellow men are dropping dead at much higher rates than women are in their own hands. But of course, men still have it easier. Brothers, this appeals to emotion with no proof do not work and should not work for any man. Feminists will continue to paint the world as misogynistic on everything while simultaneously being entirely misandrist in their conclusions. The double standard is evident, and the evidence that male suffering is at an all-time high are everywhere around us for us to see. The goal for feminism is not for female equality. Female equality has long been achieved. The goal of feminism is female empowerment over men. Women being more powerful than men, women having more rights than men, and men being subservient and slaves to the female. That's the only position that these feminists and misandrists around see men as playing. Thank you for listening.